We're at Swayambhunath, one of the oldest and most complex sacred sites in Nepal. Rising from a wooded hill on the western edge of Kathmandu, Swayambhunath looks out across the entire Kathmandu Valley. From here, you can see how densely settled the valley is. Houses, roads, and neighborhoods filling nearly every flat space between the surrounding hills. The valley and the myth. According to Buddhist tradition, the Kathmandu Valley was once a vast lake. From its center emerged a radiant lotus glowing with spiritual energy. When the lake was later drained by the Bodhisattva Manjushri, according to legend, the lotus transformed into the stupa that stands here today. The name Swayambhunath comes from Swayambhu, meaning self-arisen. The idea is that this sacred presence was not built in the ordinary sense, but revealed itself. Whether taken as myth or metaphor, the story reflects how deeply this hill is tied to the identity of the valley itself. Historically, Swayambhunath is believed to date back at least to the 5th century during the Lichavi period, making it one of the oldest continuously sacred sites in Nepal. Long before Kathmandu became a capital or a dense urban center, this hill already marked the spiritual geography of the valley. Over centuries, kings, monks, merchants, and pilgrims added shrines, temples, and symbols around the central stupa, turning the hill into a layered sacred landscape. For many visitors, the experience begins with the climb. The long eastern stairway rises steeply toward the summit, with hundreds of steps leading straight up the hillside. Along the way, there are small shrines, prayer wheels, and places to pause, some to pray, others simply to catch their breath. This ascent is not incidental. Like many sacred hills across South Asia, effort is part of devotion. And of course, the climb is shared with the site's most famous residents. Swayambhunath is often called the Monkey Temple, and the name is earned. Troops of macaques live freely on the hill, moving across stairways, rooftops, railings, and trees. They watch visitors closely, especially for food, and seem entirely comfortable among humans. They are not symbolic figures in the religious sense, but their presence has become inseparable from the site. They remind you that this is not a sealed monument. It's a living environment where nature, religion, and urban life overlap. At the summit, the stupa dominates the hilltop. Like Buddhanath Stupa, Swayambhunath is not a building you enter. Devotion happens outside, through movement and repetition. The stupa's symbolism mirrors Buddhanath. In many ways, the white dome represents the world or universe. The harmika above it symbolizes enlightenment. The eyes of the Buddha look out in all directions, representing awareness. The symbol between the eyes is the Nepali number 1, signifying unity. The spire above rises in stages toward awakening, but the setting here is very different. Instead of an open square, the stupa is surrounded by a dense cluster of shrines, temples, statues, and platforms. Space feels compressed, layered vertically rather than spread outward. One of the most important things to understand about Swayambhunath is that it is not exclusively Buddhist. Hindu shrines and imagery are woven throughout the site. You see tridents, bells, lingams, and images of Hindu deities alongside Buddhist symbols. This reflects a long reality in the Kathmandu Valley, especially among the newer people, the historic inhabitants of the valley. For centuries, newer religious life has blended Hindu and Buddhist practices, often within the same families and neighborhoods. Swayambhunath functions as a shared sacred space, where boundaries between traditions are porous rather than rigid. By this point in the journey, we visited 3 very different sacred landscapes. At Pashupatinath Temple, ritual is intense and specific, focused on life transitions, especially death. Fire, water, priests, and families all converge in highly structured ceremonies. At Buddhanath, practice is continuous and calming, defined by circular movement repetition, and collective rhythm. Here at Swayambhunath, the experience is more chaotic and layered. There is devotion but also noise, stillness but also movement. Monks, pilgrims, tourists, monkeys, vendors, and city sounds all share the same space. It feels less controlled and more reflective of Kathmandu itself. Standing here in 2010, Swayambhunath feels ancient and resilient. 5 years later, the 2015 earthquake would damage parts of the site, just as it damaged monuments across the valley. Repairs and restoration followed, continuing a long cycle of destruction and rebuilding that has shaped Kathmandu for centuries. That history is important. Sacred sites here are not preserved by avoiding change, but by absorbing it. Swayambhunath does not offer a single clean message. Instead, it presents layers, myth, and history. Buddhist and Hindu, city and forest, stillness and noise. From this hilltop, Kathmandu isn't just a collection of monuments. It's a lived landscape of belief, shaped by geography, tradition, and constant negotiation between past and present. If Pashupatinath shows how the city confronts life and death, and Buddhanath shows how it cultivates continuity and calm, then Swayambhunath shows how these traditions coexist, imperfectly, vibrantly, and in full view of the city below.